This video took time and many revisions to make. Please give it a quick like. The world-famous quantum physicist, Dr. Reza stood in front of a large, metallic door. He had spent the better part of his career researching and developing this door, which served as a gateway to a parallel universe. As the founder and CEO of the largest organization Raker Industries in both universes, he was one of the wealthiest and most powerful men in the world. But his true motivation for discovering this parallel universe was much more personal. 10 years ago, his wife and daughter had died in a tragic car accident on a mountainside road. He had been consumed with grief, and the thought of reuniting with them was the only thing that kept him going. However, when he finally found the parallel universe and stepped through the door, he discovered that his wife and daughter were still dead and that the version of himself in that universe had died with them. Devastated, he had been searching for a new parallel universe where they were still alive, but it had been a decade, and many people had begun to question his sanity. Worst of all, rumors had begun to spread that he had murdered his wife in order to keep the fame and fortune of his discovery to himself. He knew that these rumors were untrue, and it was hurtful to hear people spreading such lies. He was aware that some people were blaming him for her death since it was she who came up with the complex equations for finding the first parallel universe. Despite the naysayers and the rumors, Dr. Reza refused to give up. He knew that there had to be another parallel universe out there where his wife and daughter were still alive, and he was determined to find it, no matter how long it took. Dr. Reza stood on stage, accepting yet another award for his groundbreaking work in quantum physics. He smiled and waved to the crowd, but his mind was elsewhere. He couldn't shake the feeling of emptiness that had consumed him since the loss of his wife and daughter. As he stepped off the stage, he was surrounded by well-wishers and colleagues, but their voices were a blur to him. He was on autopilot, lost in his own thoughts and memories. He glanced at his watch and saw that it was exactly 12 a.m., the same date and time of the accident that took his wife and daughter's lives. Every year on this date, at this exact time, he would drive down the same mountainside road, playing the same song that was playing when he lost his wife and daughter. This year, it was raining, and the roads were slick and shiny. He received a call from his business partner, Alexander Blackheart. He bent down to pick up the phone, his eyes momentarily off the road. He saw a text message from Alexander, saying that he was urgently needed at the company's headquarters. Alexander was the business and entrepreneur that helped create the Raker industry since Reza was just the genius behind it. The road was straight and familiar, and he had driven it so many times that he didn't pay much attention. But when he looked up, he saw a shadowy figure with some kind of black cloth lifted up from both sides, rapidly approaching his car. He tried to stop, but the car lost control on the wet road and rolled and slid violently down the side of the mountain, into the ocean below. As he lay trapped in the car, his thoughts were consumed by regret and sorrow. He couldn't help but think that if he had paid more attention, if he had been more present at the moment, things might have turned out differently. Reza's heart was pounding as he struggled to open the car doors, but they wouldn't budge. Panic set in as he realized he was trapped, sinking deeper into the ocean with every passing moment. Thoughts of his wife and daughter flooded his mind, and he couldn't shake the feeling of regret and guilt. But then, amidst the chaos, he heard a voice. It was his wife's voice, calm and reassuring, asking him to relax and breathe. He couldn't believe it, but her voice seemed to be coming from inside his head. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath, and as he exhaled, he felt himself start to relax. As he looked around, he noticed that it was pitch black, and he couldn't see much. The only time he could see anything was when there was a flash of lightning above. But as he looked out into the darkness, he saw something that made him question what he was seeing. In the distance, a shadow seemed to be darker than the darkness around him. It was bigger than any animal he had ever seen before, bigger even than the biggest whales. And it was moving slowly, almost gliding through the water. He couldn't believe what he was seeing and wondered if it was just a hallucination. But he didn't have time to dwell on it, as he noticed that the car was still sinking. He had to act fast if he wanted to survive. He searched for something to break the window with, and finally managed to find the headrest hook. He used it to break the side window, and after a few attempts, he managed to escape the car. Reza managed to escape the car and started swimming up. He was getting tired, and his lungs were burning for air. Just as he was about to lose consciousness, he saw something that made his blood run cold. The dark shadow that he had seen earlier was now upon him, and it was massive, towering above him like a giant monster straight out of a sailor's tale. It opened its mouth wide, revealing rows of sharp teeth and the biggest tongue he had ever seen. He knew at that moment that he was about to be eaten. The creature was so big that it engulfed both Reza and his car, and he couldn't resist or swim away. As he closed his eyes and accepted his fate, he heard his wife's voice again, saying, "Sleep well, Reza." He thought he had died. But instead of death, he found himself in a dreamlike state. He saw his family, old friends, and parents in a beautiful meadow, surrounded by sunshine and flowers. But as he looked around, he saw that the meadow was starting to turn into a fiery hell, consumed by darkness, shadows, and mountains erupting with lava. As he panicked and tried to find a way out, he suddenly woke up in a wooden shed, with a shiny small flying insect that he had never seen before right on his nose. He was confused and disoriented, not sure if he was still alive or if this was some kind of afterlife. Please subscribe and comment on what do you think will happen next. I will upload next part of this story if this video gets 10 likes. See ya. Bye.